to the bitter end. Come and join us, DNVR. We are DNVR.
We are DNVR. We are live from the DNVR Bar in Studio A right here in the heart of QB country.
Wow.
And Studio A, the A stands for actual possibilities today in terms of, let's talk about some prospects who are actual possibilities for the Denver Broncos. We've spent so much time talking about the quarterbacks in the pre-Russell Wilson era, an era that I personally cannot remember at all. It was just so long ago. And we haven't talked about very many other guys on this show. Henry, obviously, of Draft Podcast fame.
That's me.
Has talked about a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
And so we're going to get into that. First, I want to give a shout out to MSU Denver, msudenver.edu/online, where you can go to scope out all they have to offer. And they have a lot to offer, including 750 total classes, 45 plus online and hybrid programs. And you can pretty much do anything over there at MSU Denver, but you can especially keep a full-time job because MSU Denver students work twice as many hours as students attending any other Colorado institution. Also, Yoke Week rolls on. Got 5 straight days of Jokic shirts.
I thought you said you didn't know what you're going to wear.
I know. I forgot about this one. This is the first one we ever made. It wasn't even designed by D-Line.
Oh, really?
Yes. It was designed by
Looks kind of good.
The homie Matt Cisneros.
Oh, really?
Yes,
okay.
It was. It's a long story behind it that we won't get into here on this show. But I was able to keep it rolling. Every day that I've worn a Jokic shirt, his odds to win MVP have gotten better. So I'm just going to keep doing it.
Did they get better again today?
They got better twice last night.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yes. Once
I'm really worried about Giannis.
They got better once after the Sixers lost to the Pistons. Good job.
Okay, yeah.
And then once after Giannis went crazy, and Giannis actually made a 450-point jump after that game. But for whatever reason, they also moved Jokic even further into the league.
Yeah. Like 2 days ago, he was sitting there at plus 1,200, and I was like, well, that seems weird. Like, I thought Giannis was kind of like right there. But I guess if DraftKings says so, and now he's sitting at like plus 450 or plus 550 or something, and I don't like that.
A little bit onto Giannis when he was at plus 1,000. Anyways, let's jump into this. And Henry, I'm really going to let you take the lead here. I kind of want you to talk me into some of your favorite prospects. And as we go through here, we can kind of talk about what the Broncos need. Can you draft for need that late in the draft, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the floor is yours.
Okay. I mean, so what? At 64, you're really just looking for somebody who drops. And inevitably, what actually happens during the draft is you notice there's like 2-3 guys who are dropping. You're like, oh, look, the Broncos are going to get one of them. And then George Payton goes and takes somebody who you're like, well, what's that all about? You had DeMarvin Leal right there, for example. But, I mean, that's really where I'm going with all these is just guys who could potentially fall to 64. And this is kind of a bold one, but let's just start with the tight ends. I mean, Trey McBride probably going to be going around pick 40 or so.
Okay.
But that's within the range of like surprising draft day falls, I think. You know, I'd be surprised if he gets much past 64, but I do think that there is a possibility that he could still be on the board. And if he's not, then there's a couple other tight ends who'd be good there too.
If you're Trey McBride's family, are you planning a day 2 draft party?
Yeah.
Or a 2-day draft party?
That's how I'd phrase it. Yeah. I think there's probably like a 30%, 1 in 3 chance he goes in the first round would be where I put it.
What I would do if I were them is say, like, we're not doing anything for the first round, just want to be with family, et cetera, but make it seem like we're still expecting to be picked. But like, I don't want to do it.
We'll celebrate the next
draft party, yeah. And then we're gonna do a party celebrating wherever he ends up the next day. And then it's like you get the best of both worlds.
That's probably the move. I mean, the reason I think he could fall, though, is just because, I mean, he's a little bit smaller tight end, and he comes from Colorado State.
Okay, so just for people who maybe are new to the show, weren't listening back when we were at the Senior Bowl, he was one of the prospects we talked about the most that wasn't a quarterback, because remember, we're focused on quarterbacks back then. But we talked a lot about Trey McBride at the Senior Bowl, and he was awesome.
Yeah, his hands, and he can jump.
So he has, okay, so here's the 2 things about Trey McBride. The one thing is he looked tiny compared to the other tight ends there. And when I say tiny, I'm not exaggerating at all. He, like, I was joking, like, he looked like Wes Welker standing next to Demaryius Thomas. Next to some of the other tight ends. He looks really, really small when they're just standing there. Then when he gets out there on the field, what you realize is his reach is insane. And so that's why when you go back and watch Trey McBride highlights, you see him making all these, like, way away from his body, spectacular
kind of like
catches.
Kittle.
Right.
Is what it looks like.
It's because his arms are so long. So his catch radius, despite being, I wouldn't give him much over 6'3". Despite being smaller, he's long. And he can not only use that to catch balls away from his body, but he can also use those arms combined with his lower center of gravity to really do a nice job blocking people.
Totally, yeah.
What did he actually measure in at? Because I'm probably underselling.
I think it was very different. I think at the Senior Bowl he was like 6'4", and then he went to the combine. They said 6'3".
Okay, all right.
It was something like that where there's just like a massive separation. You're like, well, what does this
How is
even
that
mean?
even possible?
I know.
Like, we're using different
right
measuring systems.
Somebody paid somebody off. I don't know.
Yeah, that's
but
crazy.
I mean, he's probably not there at 64. If they wanted to trade up to like he falls to 45, 50 or something, that might be a good move. Just because, I mean, right now you have Alberto and you have that Tomlinson guy, and it's like you have your receiver and you have your blocker, but that's not. So what? Like the point of a tight end and the why everybody gets so excited about him now is because you don't know how to defend him. Like, you need to bring somebody into the box, and you're like, oh, do we bring a corner? Do we match up a linebacker? And with either of those guys, the answer is pretty obvious.
What's interesting, though, is, one, Russ hasn't really had much of a tight end. He did have
the ghost of Jimmy Graham.
The ghost of Jimmy Graham at one point. But
the ghost of Greg Olsen.
Also had the ghost of Greg Olsen. One of the things about those guys, though, is when he was targeting them, he was just targeting them vertically a lot of the time. And if there's a knock on Russ, it's that he doesn't really use the middle of the field much at all. He likes to go vertical. He likes to go to the sidelines. And that's the theory, is that he can't see the middle of the field as well, so he'd rather just go where he can see.
It works out, though.
It works out fine, but it does make it seem like maybe it's a little bit of a luxury to have two really good tight ends.
Yeah, that's true. Right now, you might be sitting on 0, though.
No, I think in terms of what this offense is going to do, I think Alberto is going to be really good for it.
Okay.
Because you just want mismatches. Like Julius Thomas wasn't a tight end, but Peyton Manning made him look pretty damn good.
It's true. Just to like wrap up tight ends, Jalen Weidermeyer from Texas A&M, like, he's just massive. He's a freak.
Wider.
He is a little wider. Doesn't really block though, and he just has like the size where like he should be able to block. He wasn't quite as productive. He was kind of been disappointing, but potentially would have been like a first round pick before this whole process. But
yeah, I mean, we were obviously both there at Mile High when the Buffs played them, and he looks like an NFL player.
He does. And I mean, this is a little off topic.
They had a lot of guys that looked like NFL players.
They sure did, and we're going to talk about a couple more of them. But right. I think like at that CU game, that was the one where they just played man across the board with a safety back behind, and the one player who was able to beat the coverage and move the chains or pick up any sort of yards was Weidermeyer. So we can throw that out there. Isaiah Likely from Coastal Carolina, another tight end.
Yep.
I don't know. I like the tight ends.
It's likely that one of those guys could fall.
It's very likely that at least one of them will be there.
And again, if I was to look at one that has the highest chance of falling, it would probably be between McBride and Likely.
Yep.
For similar kind of reasons. The other thing with Trey McBride is he obviously dominated against just lesser competition. Same thing with Coastal Carolina. Like when NFL teams are making these decisions, and I'm not trying to knock Trey McBride. I hope he falls.
I think he's a first round pick.
Yeah,
that's why we're talking about
it. But when teams are looking at this, they try to eliminate as many variables and risks as they can. And so like they're gonna look at a guy like Weidermeyer, in my opinion, and say like, okay, played in the SEC, he has the size, he has the strength, he looks the part. Check. He's gonna be the one that goes first. I think.
Yeah. I think so too. Where do we go next? How about the receivers? Okay. I know that the Broncos don't really need a receiver, and a receiver at 64 would kind of be a waste.
Okay, so before we open up that conversation, let's just open up this conversation. When you're drafting and your first pick is at 64, you don't really have the luxury of drafting for need.
No, because what is the guy going to do? Like, it's not like odds are you're not going to draft somebody who it's like, yeah, easy,
Instant
plug and play
starter.
starter. Like, you just solved your problem.
You would like picks in the top 100 to contribute immediately.
Yep.
But that doesn't necessarily mean day one starter.
Exactly. And that's why, like, I get the hype for a tackle at 64, but there's a part of me that thinks, like, is that really the route that you want to go down? Like, to me, in a dream world, you either get a first-round tackle or you just pay somebody who's really good, and you don't really mess around. But then, I mean, there's other guys like Bernard Ryman who could fall because and he's kind of like one of the raw ones in the top 5. Trevor Penning, another kind of raw tackle who maybe they just like slip down. Somebody like that wouldn't be bad. But what are you expecting from these guys?
Right. I think one of those 3 picks in a perfect world ends up being a tackle, a ball of clay, because the Broncos have not drafted a single tackle since Garrett Bowles.
That's the
last time they drafted a tackle in any round. And so you'd like to just have someone on their roster.
Schlotman wasn't a draft pick, was he?
Nope.
No,
Undrafted.
No, yeah.
They have not drafted one since Garrett Bowles. And so it's like, at some point, you'd like to just put some talent in the pipeline that isn't an undrafted free agent out of like Central Arkansas.
You would think.
So that's why I would say like one of those 3 picks I'd like to end up being a tackle. But like I said, you really just don't have the luxury of drafting for need. If you're going to draft for need, I said this the other day, like number 15 is where I would cut it off and say like you're now putting yourself in a bad position if you're going to pigeonhole. Like if you're in the top 10 and you really need a tackle, you can probably just say like we'll take the first or second best tackle off the board.
Yep.
But the further down you get, the more you're pigeonholing yourself in when you go through a draft class, you realize that the higher, depending on the position, it gets thinner and thinner the lower you go. So all that being said, you kind of have to go BPA at 64. That could be a receiver.
And with George Payton, I think he's taking BPA regardless of the pick. Like somebody like him, like he's not even
did it last year.
Exactly. Like I don't think he's gonna mess around and be like, oh, this guy kind of might fit by whatever. I think that they pretty clearly will just go whoever's best. Those receivers though, and that's why you would talk about the receivers is because there's so many, and odds are the best player available, like George Pickens, is potentially going to be right there. John Mechie, who tore his ACL like 4 months ago, so he's going to be out a while, he's probably still on the board at that point. And if John Mechie's sitting there, how do you pass on John Mechie?
I mean, I can give you the case for why you pass on him, but why you don't pass on him, I'll start with, is speed receiver, right? And you just don't know if you have one right now. Obviously, Judy is quick. You like that. KJ Hamler is crazy fast, and he doesn't play. So
he played quite a bit those first few weeks. Enough for like a 4th receiver.
What I'm saying is he can't stay on the field.
Oh yeah, there's that.
And so it feels like a luxury pick, but it might be more of like you're drafting over a player that hasn't produced for you because of health. You'd love and then if KJ gets healthy all of a sudden, then you have, a good problem. A lot of really good players.
Exactly. And people always get hurt. I mean, we saw Seth Williams out there. We've seen Tyree Cleveland out there. Like, sure, there's a lot of receivers, but there's always room for more at that position. I do think, though, like, if you're going after somebody, it's probably just like a true slot type, like a Hunter Renfrow, just move the chains, and not like the George Pickens. Either that or like a Wan'Dale Robinson. Somebody who you could move into the backfield and like move out and put him in the slot and do some of those like Debo sort of things.
I was going to say, you have to imagine Debo invented a new position last year.
Yep.
And teams are going to be really open to using different players. I know you agree with this. Someone's got to do it with Visca. And they would be dumb not to. But
what's the most you would trade for Visca? As the Broncos, like considering the receivers they already have.
One of the thirds.
Yeah. I think so too.
But he has the same problem, which is why I think teams might be hesitant to use him in the Debo role, which is he can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
He always gets banged up. Now, he has done
in the
better
pros,
in
he's
the
been
pros.
Good.
But I just remember looking last year especially, and it was always something. He's always showing up on the injury report. Maybe he's toughing it out and playing on Sundays, but that we know, we saw it firsthand. 100% Visca versus 80% Visca is actually a really big drop-off.
It is. Because what he does is breaks tackles.
Yeah.
And like if you're not breaking tackles, then it's a huge drop-off. Let's see. How about the edge rushers?
Real quick, just to finish off, What about just pure speed wide receivers that could be there?
You're in kind of a weird spot, I feel like, because like a Jahan Dotson from Penn State, he's probably gone toward the top of the second. But again, like Trey McBride, maybe he falls for some reason. Sky Moore from Western Michigan, he's probably like a better pick in like the third round.
Okay.
But I think he could be in that conversation there. Honestly, like Mechie is right there.
Right.
Do
you know what like they were thinking he could have run like?
I bet it was crazy fast. I mean, it's you would have to think. I guess he's a little bit shorter. He's only like 5'11".
Yeah.
So it's usually those long-legged guys who put up the crazy times. Yeah, but I mean, he would easily be under 4'4".
Okay.
Like he can fly and he can fit into the slot.
That's flying. Yeah.
That's
all right.
Yeah. It would be so much fun. Him or Pickens.
He's on my Madden team. 94 speed, just for
reference. Yeah. I think that's probably fair. I don't know, like the edge rushers. I feel like that's the other place where you could really see them trying to target somebody.
So to me, not only do I see this as the most likely, I see it as the best case scenario. It's a deep class for edge rushers. Whether anyone wants to believe it or not, the Broncos are actually desperate at the position. That might be overstating it a little bit.
It's a weird one because they have so many players.
Right. But they have two really big question marks is what they have at the position right now.
Yep.
That's it. And Jonathan Cooper. And
now Baron Browning, too.
Yeah.
And Malik Reed.
I think everyone, including us, made a little bit too big of a deal out of it because when they asked Hackett about it this week, he downplayed it severely and just basically said, like, yeah, we want our guys to be able to do as much as they can. And we said when it first came out, like, the way that we'd be okay with that is if the idea is, look, we're going to play a lot of dime and we're not going to have him as the linebacker on the field when we go dime. We want to keep him on the field, though, so let's go have him rush the passer.
Yeah. Or even like as in like the 3-4 on like rundowns.
Right.
Like he would be a really good like at setting the edge and tackling from there. That might there's fewer reads. Not that I think he was like bad with the reads, but for a young player it kind of makes sense to just like set the edge right here and
fitting the run.
It's simple.
Yeah. So but for real, like you have Bradley Chubb, who is just a name at this point, in my opinion. He was so good his rookie year, and just like I don't know. Like sacks are so hard to get normally. That like if you have bone spurs trying to get sacks, like if you play your 4 games or whatever. I don't know. I get it, but totally. I'm just saying if you put your hand over his name and looked at his production, you'd be like, that's not an answer at the position.
Totally.
And so there's a question mark. Randy Gregory is a question mark. You let Malik Reed essentially walk. Jonathan Cooper is.
I push back on Randy Gregory a little bit too. I think he's kind of a stud.
Already hurt.
He is already hurt, but they knew he was hurt. Like it's fixing the hurtness. I guess he could get hurt again. It just seems like at this point,
I don't want it to happen. I'm just saying it's a question mark.
He could get hurt.
He doesn't play full seasons.
Yeah,
and so I'll touch wood on his behalf. But to me, it's a sneaky weakness of the defense.
Definitely.
And it's a deep position in the draft class.
Exactly, and that's why it fits, and that's why like David Ojabo probably not there. He's somebody we talked more about when they were picking in the top 10, but you see him in all these mock drafts now like falling out of the first round sometimes. So it's unlikely he could slip that far, but some of these really good edge rushers will, and he's one who would fit really well.
Who's the team that's going to take, like what's the type of team that takes David Ojabo? Because it's kind of an interesting position. You're not in win now mode. And you're not, one of these teams that is in I guess a team that's in true rebuild, top of the second round.
Easily,
you're looking at like, let's just say the Jags, for example. Kind of makes sense for them to be like, we're not winning this year anyway, so let's take a really, really high upside player that isn't going to play until next year.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's a tough one to evaluate just because he was playing across from Aiden Hutchinson. And so like it's easy to look at it and be like, yeah, he was pretty raw. At the same time, though, like as Dre really likes to point out, there were games where he was better than Aiden Hutchinson. And it's like, well, is that because they're double teaming Aiden and he's coming open?
Right.
And I do wonder, but he is just like that Von Miller type of speed edge rusher that has worked really well in Denver.
Yeah.
And so I think he'd be a fun one. But more realistically, you look at guys like a Drake Jackson from USC. He's a good one. Another one of those just like pure bendy speed sorts of guys. Nick Bonito is more versatile from Oklahoma. I think of those two, one of them should definitely be on the board at that pick. I think, I guess like Myjai Sanders from Cincinnati would be the last one you throw out. And he's more that like, he might even be more of a 4-3 defensive end. But another just big Bradley Chubb, Randy Gregory type. And if that's what George Payton's after, then it could make some sense to take him too.
All right.
Yeah.
As for someone in the comments, they said, don't take injured players, Jake Butt flashbacks. Remember, Jake Butt was a 5th-round pick. Like, at that point, you're just taking flyers.
That's where you do take the injured players.
Yeah, and like,
just say like,
of course, can you point to George Kittle and say he was the very next pick? Yes, you can. But that's luck.
Yep.
It's luck. Any GM will tell you that's luck.
Any 5th-round pick that becomes a
luck.
Pro Bowler is luck.
It's luck. Like we had Tim Connolly here the other night. Even he wouldn't take credit for Nikola Jokic. He wouldn't take credit for Bones Highland.
It's wild.
But, I mean, he's also just awesome.
He is awesome.
But anyways, we're going to keep talking a little bit more about these prospects in a second. I think Ojabo,
he's another one of like the dream guys.
Again, especially because you're in the 2nd round, you can't be drafting for need. That kind of is a need, but maybe not in the short term. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I do think it's a sneaky weakness of the defense, but you could get away with saying, hey, look, we just got a guy who we think is like an 8 to 10 year solution at the position. It's just not, this isn't one of those years.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially because you look at it and say, like, if Bradley Chubb isn't out there, you're excited to have Malik Reed out there.
Yep.
You're excited to have Jonathan Cooper out there.
Yep.
Like, you do have enough guys. And, I mean, I don't know. It just sucks they tore that Achilles.
It really
like,
sucks.
Like, if he didn't, then we couldn't have this conversation in the first place. But
the good news is they've gotten a lot better at repairing those Achilles.
yeah, I mean, it's like 6-8 months now. 6 months more often.
Cam Akers.
Yeah, exactly.
He did it at an insane rate. So that's good news. It's also good news that you can come down to the DNVR bar and hang out tonight, watch Nikola Jokic be Nikola Jokic. Kind of a big matchup tonight. If the Nuggets win this one, they're touch wood, basically safe from the play-in.
I know. My girlfriend's a Timberwolves fan, which is like one of her worst qualities. But we were going to go, and then they scheduled bus practice for tonight. 2nd practice of the spring, so I will be working all night. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be real fun.
So do you have tickets that you're trying to get rid of?
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
No, sorry.
I was going to say, I'm kind of interested in going. We both went to the Avs game last night.
We
separately.
did. That was wild.
Wait, tell the double seat upgrade story.
That was wild. So we're just walking in. They're like, you guys want a seat upgrade? Because she knew one of the guys. And they're like trying to pick people out. It's like, we have the 2 Coors upgrade seats of the night.
Yeah.
Got like a little Coors hat and gloves and all that
Apparently
stuff.
you were on the Jumbotron.
For an extended period of time.
How did I not see this?
I don't know.
So I did go for like a drink during a break, which I normally
It was
don't
the first
do because
break.
it's you got to be really fast.
Yeah.
The first long break where they
The first intermission
scrape
or
the ice.
first TV break.
Yeah, I was gone.
Yep, that explains
sucks.
it. I was surprised. I had like 2 people tweet at me, but I did expect more than that.
Oh,
If I was being honest. I was like, I don't know, but that's a whole separate thing. But yeah, you get up there and there's like, okay, well, after the first TV, you're gonna be on the camera, and it's like the camera's like up in your face, which is different than how that typically works.
Right.
Like usually it's just like,
You
oh,
look
look,
up
it's
and
me.
it's you, yeah.
And then 2 seconds later, it's gone. But instead, it's like 40 seconds of just like drinking a beer and waving. It was so awkward. It was so
sad
awkward.
I missed that.
I know.
I'm
But then
so
I
sad.
got the season ticket upgrade too. And because like the lady just like texted me, is like, hey, you want an upgrade tonight? And I was like,
Yeah.
I had typed out like, oh, actually, I got. And then my girlfriend looked at me and was like, take the upgrade. I was like, oh, yeah, we should definitely take this upgrade
was the
too.
sponsored upgrade, not like one of the best seats in the house.
It was weird. So it's like up at like the end of the ice, and then there's like a wheelchair row, but then you're kind of on the concourse almost, and there's like
I
a
know what
table
you're
with tall
talking about,
chairs,
yeah.
and so you actually have to like sit like this to be able to see the goal, and so
Yeah.
you're like looking past people trying to see things. And we wound up being like 15 rows up from there.
I'll just say this: if we're gonna do the DNVR seat upgrade of the game, I want those seats on the
Yeah,
glass.
yeah, exactly. Like that's how it should be.
Yeah,
I
should be.
I kind of thought we might be getting that, but
Anyways, all that
Anyways.
aside, come down, hang out at the DNVR bar tonight, watch the Nugs against the Timberwolves. Should be a fun one. Hopefully Yoke just keeps going off.
I mean, I don't. Yeah, we'll knock on wood for that because you have to. But you don't. I feel like you don't even have to with him. Like he just does what he does. It's not like some nights he does some. What's a stat where like Embiid is shot under 35% 10 times this season, and Jokic has once.
Once, yep. It's crazy. Speaking of Jokic and those sorts of things, you can go bet on Nikola Jokic at DraftKings Sportsbook. Pretty much just like that's like the number one way I make money is by betting on Nikola Jokic. Other than my job, that's 1 and 2.
It's probably pretty close though.
It should be. If I was a little more aggressive, it could be closer. Okay. But head over to DraftKings Sportsbook, and finally, March Madness returns tomorrow. I got to admit, the week break kind of kills my vibe when it comes to March Madness.
I was telling my girlfriend, like, the first weekend is a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, specifically, the first 2 days are a lot of fun.
Yep.
And the next 2 days, you're like, okay, still fun.
Great,
and then there's the break, and you're like, let's do it again. It's fun.
But it comes around Thursday, so you're like, at least I only have to go through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. This one going from Sunday to Saturday, it's just too long. I don't feel it anymore.
Kind of over it.
Yeah. Hopefully North Carolina wins though.
Yeah.
That's
for George Karl. I'll do it for George.
George Karl and just the lowest seed. Hall of Fame coworker.
Hall of Fame coworker of ours.
George Karl. Okay. Yes. Anyways, you can bet 5 to win 200 on any of those teams, including these last 2 Final Four games and the championship game. If you get the team right, you're going to get $200 in free bets over at DraftKings Sportsbook. So get over there and bet $5 to win $200. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only, new customers only, minimum $5 deposit, restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. And if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. Also check out the American Raptors over at Infinity Park. The weather's starting to get nice again. You're just going to be looking for awesome things to do outside. And watching rugby at Infinity Park is absolutely one of them. Like, it has everything: the sun, sports, and beers.
That's all of them.
Cider, like they like ciders a lot.
Oh.
They've got Breck Brew seltzers over there.
Ooh.
So you can just like go have a day, just day drinking in the sun, watching sports for much cheaper than you can watching pretty much any other sport. So head over there, go watch the American Raptors, and have yourself a day. Especially now that this weather is nice. It's so close to golf season for me.
I don't know. We have that tee time in like 2 weeks.
No, that's longer than that. It's in May.
Oh, thank God. I was nervous, panicked.
Yeah.
I realized I was like laying in bed last night, and I was like, oh shoot, I have 2 weeks to be a good golfer.
No, it's a little bit longer.
Okay, good.
I'm trying to get a tee time in the next couple weeks though.
Definitely.
Like, next Saturday and Sunday is supposed to be mid-70s. Perfect golf weather.
Nice.
All right, let's keep the conversation rolling. Anyone else that you think the Broncos should be looking at?
Yeah, there was one more. Oh, the running backs. 64 is probably not a running back, but I will say they've got to draft one. Like, because I guess they have Killins on the roster too, so they do have 3 on the roster. The thing is, like, if you're really going to go at this with Javonte just being a full-on bell cow, he's going to miss 3 games probably minimum. We'll knock on wood, but as much as like Mike Boone is fast and exciting, and like there's like he had the 6 yards per carry on like the 40 carries a few years ago, or whatever. Rolling into a season saying Mike Boone more likely than not is going to be starting games for us, and the spellback is going to be Adrian Killins.
Mike Boone has like a 150-yard game as a starter.
And like 400 yards in his career.
He hasn't started very much.
Exactly. But I do think you at least need some sort of competition. And again, there should be some options around this range. Like I doubt that they'd go after like these top guys, but the top guys are going to go at the end of the second. You know, if you wanted a Breece Hall, Javonte Williams combination, all of a sudden you have, I mean, it's like Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. Like what? How many teams have had that combination? Maybe that's pointing toward why they won't go after it. But that 1-2 punch could just be incredible. I mean, Kenneth Walker right around there is the other one that I'd look at. I don't think Spiller really fits because he is that like true bell cow type. And you're looking for somebody who's more of like a spell back, and those two also have the upside of potentially being bell cows down the road. More likely though is like Kyron Williams in the 3rd round. Quick little speedy guy from Notre Dame.
It's a good fit in terms of thunder and lightning style thing.
Totally. But I do think that one of those running backs is going to go. 64 is probably too high, but you never know. Like, if he really likes one of those backs and thinks that he can put one of those duos together, why not?
It all comes down, in my opinion, to this Melvin Gordon situation. Both teams are just or both sides are just kind of slow playing each other, and I think the Broncos probably have a hard line number internally that they're like, if he's ready to drop below $4 million, then we'll engage. Same sort of thing I think happening with Kareem Jackson.
Yeah,
you see some of like the Tyrann Mathieu rumors pop up. I almost wonder if that's just the Broncos maybe letting that out there a little bit to have a little leverage over Kareem, to be like, well, we were talking with Tyrann too.
We could go in on this.
Yeah, so
if you don't take it, we might just offer.
Right, like you can't act like we're pigeonholed coming after you. And they also have another lever of leverage, which is Caden Stearns, where they can just say like, we think he's ready.
Yeah. For sure.
So I think that's happening. But just to go back to running backs, if they don't sign Melvin, if
they don't sign Melvin, they have to draft somebody. It's just whether it's in the 6th round or up higher.
I don't think they have to.
You can't go into the season with Adrian Killins on the roster. No offense to Adrian Killins, like that's just not going to happen.
So they might add someone in the late rounds, but
yeah,
I just think I think that George Payton legitimately really likes Mike Boone. And when they brought him in last year, this was kind of the idea. They're like, let's bring in Mike Boone, and then we're going to go draft Javonte Williams, and then we'll let Melvin walk, and then we'll just kind of let those two guys step up a spot. It's not, I don't know. I like Mike Boone, so I have property on Boone's farm.
Wow.
So I'm in on Mike Boone. I think there's definitely a real chance that if they don't sign Melvin, maybe one of the first 4 picks that they have, probably not the first, but 2, 3, or 4 could go on a running back.
I guess there's always running backs out there too. And like, again, knock on wood, but if you lose Javonte for an extended period of time, you could go find somebody.
And like the running back conversation gets weird because like NFL Twitter has pushed so hard against running backs that people just think like, they almost think that running backs don't even matter anymore. Yeah. And it's like, no. You should have good running backs. You
should be able to find them. Yeah.
Right.
Don't commit long term.
Right. You don't want to pay them a ton. You don't want to commit long term. Having a 2nd round running back on the roster with 3 years left on his contract and a 3rd round running back on the roster with 4 years left on his contract is a really good, especially we already know one's a hit. If you hit on both, that's like a really good situation and being while in a Super Bowl window. Yeah.
Because I mean, again, like how often do you see that? Like Austin Eckler, Melvin Gordon, I guess was in that kind of range. Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon, or even Jamal Williams was more productive that year before too. Yeah. But if you can find that combination.
I do like the point from Jose in the comments, though, who says, I don't think the team will be running that much. And this goes into what Zach and I talked about yesterday.
Yeah.
They're going to let Russ cook. And he's never been allowed to before. No matter what anyone tells you, Zach pointed it out yesterday, he's never been higher than 16th in the NFL in pass attempts in a season, which is mind-boggling. I'd be willing to bet he's top 10 next year.
Probably. The difference, though, is that the Broncos should be up in games and running in the 4th quarter instead of throwing in the 4th quarter now. And on top of that, they should be running 30% more plays than they ran last year.
Yep.
And those touches go somewhere.
Trying to run the clock out is one of the reasons why I don't necessarily want them to bring Melvin back.
Yeah. And that's the thing with Melvin is like, it's not even just the money to me. It's like, it's the money, but also you are the number 2 running back. Like, you need to accept that. And I don't think that...
I think he would.
You do?
The stakes are just too high to have a fumbler out there.
Totally.
And Javonte also fumbled twice last year.
Yeah.
That's an acceptable number. Over the course of
a rookie
of a season for a rookie. So, but you'd like to see him have 1 or 0 this year. But you can't. In my opinion, you can't be handing the ball off to Melvin Gordon when you're up 7 late in the game, and it's easy to just say, look, well, did you just play Javonte then? But like, what if Javonte got nicked up? What if Melvin's having a really good game and the running back coach sends him out there again? Like, it just gives me anxiety.
It gives me anxiety too, and it's a lot like the Bryce Callahan thing, where it's like. You have to do something about the cornerback position, and you want to get off of Bryce Callahan because you just can't trust him to be out on the field.
Yep.
Can you do that this offseason, though? Because there's a good chance that there's just not going to be another corner that's close to as good as he is, and so you have to take the risk. And it's the same thing with Melvin, where it's like he has these flaws. I don't know that he's the perfect fit. I guess with the zone running, he should do a little bit better. But, I mean, you want to get off of them. Can you get off of them right now? Similar to Kareem, too. It's like you want to find the long-term answer at safety. It seems more likely that they'll just wait for Caden Stearns to be ready, though, there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I want Tyron so bad.
It would be so much fun.
In the comments here, this is a guy I know you like talking about. If Troy Anderson was there at 55 to 60 range, do you try to trade up for him, or do you wait to see if he's there at 64? I feel like he's a great fit for this defense. I saw him this year at MSU.
I think you got to wait for him to fall. Also,
can you just tell the Troy Anderson story, because it's one of my favorite draft stories?
First of all, Troy Anderson is my nemesis. I've mentioned this on the draft podcast before.
This is how I know he's good, because you respect him and he went to Montana State.
I hate him so much. Like he was like our rival in Columbia Falls and Dillon in high school.
It's kind of like me with Trey McBride, right? Like,
yeah,
I have nothing bad to say about Trey McBride. Yeah. That should tell you how good he is.
But like I remember like high school state basketball, like multiple state championship games. The year after I graduated, we finally beat him in a state championship football game. But he was playing quarterback, he's playing safety. So he goes to Montana State after playing at Dillon, and you don't get any offers. He's 90 minutes from the closest Walmart in Dillon. But you wind up at Montana State. He's a running back. He's national, like all freshman team, whatever, at running back. They flip him to linebacker. Before the season, the quarterback is academically ineligible, so he flips to quarterback and winds up being an all Big Sky quarterback. And then the last 2 years, he winds up playing linebacker, where he was first team All-American both, but this year he was the National Defensive Player of the Year. I think he was runner-up last year. Like, he's a freak. He ran like a 4.4 something. He's long. He's 6'3". He's very comparable to like either Taysom Hill or Luke Kuechly.
That is insane to me, to be able to get superlatives at 3 different positions on both sides of the ball in college. I realize
it's wild.
It's FCS, but it does not matter.
No,
the athleticism required to be that type of running back, that type of quarterback, and a linebacker, all in the transition, being a starter right away, like all of that stuff is mind-boggling. So he's become one of my favorite prospects in the draft.
It's wild,
just because it's like you're just a straight-up football player.
Yep, and like there will be something for him. Still though, like he isn't like the most physical taking on blocks. He's a little bit wiry in his frame. So you almost wonder if he's more of like Isaiah Simmons. Is he a safety? Is he a linebacker type of deal that half the time works out and half the time you're like, well, what do we do with him? And so there are those sorts of question marks, and that's why that's why he's probably a late second round pick. And I mean, if they traded up for him, I wouldn't be mad. I don't know that I could take Alex Singleton and Troy Anderson both on this roster.
Both from Montana
I might
State.
lose my mind, but it is what it is. But he's with those linebackers and the other linebackers. I mean, Devin Lloyd isn't going to fall that far. But if he falls into the second, you could trade up for him. He should have been a Heisman finalist from Utah. Christian Harris from Alabama. He I bet will be on the board. He's just a good true inside linebacker. Muma's popular.
Wyoming. Right?
Yeah, N'Kobe Dean from Georgia probably won't fall that far, but he's another one that somebody's going to slip. There's going to be a couple names we don't expect to be there. But Troy Anderson is a really good one.
I would kind of like a lot of those names there in the second round. But I don't know. The Broncos have such a weird approach to linebacker. I never have any idea what they're doing.
I know. At some point, though, I do think, like, if you can have a stud linebacker, that changes a lot of things. Like, you don't have to worry about the run game. Like, now you're sitting there, it's like, well, how do you stop the run? Sure, I guess DJ Jones solves a lot of the problem. Mm-hmm. You have Randy Gregory. He's going to really help. But I think...
Josie.
Yeah, now
Josie
you're like,
really
you have Josie right there. But then around there, it's like, Draymond can play like half the snaps. DJ Jones probably playing half the snaps. And very quickly you get down to guys, you're like, so the defensive line isn't going to stop the run. You have Josie, but then you also have, like,
Yeah.
Baron Browning? Does he wind up back at inside linebacker? Like, they have some options, but you're just missing that juice.
And it was the weirdest thing to me ever that the Broncos never truly invested in the position while Vic Fangio was the head coach.
Yeah.
Being that he's an all-time great linebackers coach.
You would think.
And I think their thought process on that was like, oh, well, then that means he can just take regular guys and make them great. And with Josie, he did a really good job.
He did.
But I always just thought, like, give this man his Roquan Smith. That was one of the best seasons he ever had as a defensive coordinator was when he got Roquan Smith, and it didn't seem like he wanted it. He was like hyper critical of the linebackers in the draft every year, and I think that was a miss. Between that and the fact that he never tried coaching from the booth, I think those were his two biggest mistakes.
You can't have a head coach in the booth.
Yes,
though.
you can. Why not?
Who has done that?
No one.
Because you need to be on the field. Like,
Why?
You need to be able to throw the red flag. You think you can throw it over 60 rows of people?
You literally page down and say, Munch, throw the red flag.
You gotta have like the pulse of what's going on down there. Like, you gotta be the one talking to the refs. The refs don't want to talk to an offensive coordinator.
Have a pulse of his own, let alone a pulse of what was going on.
The best argument is, I mean, it's Vic Fangio. Why can't he be in the booth?
It's not like he was motivating.
It's not like
guys
he's doing
there.
anything. Yeah. There is that part, but
it was worth a try. I'd rather do that than get fired. Anyways, this has been good. Go over to Green Mountain Dental Group, schedule a cleaning, X-ray, and exam. They'll hook you up with a free Sonicare toothbrush, which is a pretty nice deal. They're also big Denver sports fans over there, especially big Avs fans. So if you want to go talk Avs with them while you're getting whatever work you need done, they're members of the DNVR family. They've supported us for a long time. So if you need any dental work done, head over to see our friends at Green Mountain Dental Group. All right, let's jump into the comments here. Let's start with our super chats, if you will. There, no super chats. All right, then Henry, you're gonna need to buy me some time to pull up the comments from the website.
Okay. One more name, DeMarvin Leal from Texas A&M. He's a freak. He's massive. He put up like 8.5, 9 sacks as an interior defensive lineman last year. I think that he's kind of being overthought. You see mocks with him going in the second round. If he falls to the second, I'd be cool trading up to try to go after him too.
What is making him fall?
I honestly don't know.
Yeah, because
I think it's. I mean, we were talking about him top 10 a couple months ago.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, I think that there's some that just draft fatigue. I think the fact that he's an interior defensive lineman, I think people lose that. I think the big thing is people don't recognize just how disruptive he was. Like, I think he gets kind of put in that box of guys who it's like, yeah, has those tools, all that sort of stuff. But he had a crazy number of sacks this year, and I think that maybe out of all these guys, best case scenario is somehow he keeps slipping down to 64.
Yeah, I mean, interior pressure is so invaluable. Like, if you have one of those guys who's just making stuff happen in the middle of the field, and that's what, right? That's kind of his specialty.
Exactly. 8.5 sacks this year
from the inside.
Yes,
that is not normal.
No, it's not.
So if you can get that, it really not only does it make it easier for your defense, but especially makes it easier for Randy Gregory and Bradley Chubb.
It does. Which
we go back to that DeMarcus Ware Von Miller season in 2015.
Malik Jackson, Derek Wolfe.
Malik Jackson especially, and Derek Wolfe as well, were so instrumental in making that pass rush go. All right, let's jump into these comments. You can, of course, always leave your comments on thednvr.com if you're a member at thednvr.com. You can also get member beers down here. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, hit us with a thumbs up. We always appreciate that. This first one here comes in from Aaron Ray, who just says, "My G's, I appreciate your feedback and interest in my music. I posted a link to my Apple Music below for my song featuring The Game. I produced the beat as well, so I hope you all enjoy it. It's also available on Spotify.
How do you get The Game on a song? He must be really good.
I know. I haven't heard it yet, so we'll have to listen to it after this pod. He also says,
Love The Game.
P.S. Feel free to check out some of my other songs as well, and let's ride. Next one here from Tommy Bronco. Boys, 2 things for you. 1, I recently had a conversation with a coworker who believed that 11 of him in the wild with no tools would beat a full-grown charging hippo.
Oh, a hippo.
He goes, we'll get back to this in a second. But, I mean, come on. I believed it could not be disputed that the hippo would win, which gets me to my first question. I kind of want to talk about this first.
Hippo would win.
11-on-1.
I mean, if they have like knives or something, then yeah,
right.
give me
the guy. Know what the hand to hand looks like.
Like a hippo can take some blows,
and I don't really think you could do much to a hippo. Like
exactly,
just like trying to like punch its head.
If you get close to that thing's head, it's chopping you in half.
I guess if you have to sacrifice someone right away to distract them from the front, then you could climb onto its back and try to attack from there. But I just don't think you can really do that much damage.
I don't even think you could reach around his neck. Like, you couldn't even, like, try to choke him out.
I don't think you're getting around that. And, like, even if you're just, like doing, like, hammer elbows on top of its head,
I don't think it cares.
It has such a thick skull, it just doesn't even care.
Not in, like, a rude way either.
Right.
Just like it's a hippo.
I don't think you can defeat a hippo without weapons.
I don't think so either. I think that then just looking at, like, the surface area of a hippo, I don't think that there's a number. I think if you had 100 people, they just kind of get pushed out behind. Like, you could wear them out.
Like, suffocate it.
But how?
By, like, piling on.
It'd just be chomping people in half. Like I
don't know. 10 people are just, like, pushing down to make it so it can't. Or, like, 60 people are, like, leaning.
How are you getting 60 people on top of the hippo? Like, again, it's a surface area
I'm
problem.
Thinking maybe
you can't get, like, that many people in contact.
You have, like, a platform that you have that everyone jumps off at the same time.
Everybody's jumps on the hippo.
PETA's gonna come after us for this conversation.
Maybe that way, but I don't think you can do it.
Okay, so here's the question that this leads to, which I don't really know how it leads to. What is one Broncos take that cannot be disputed, current or past? Mine is that although the last 6 years have been shaky, John Elway is the driving reason the Broncos remained relevant. Without him, we don't have any of the Super Bowls. So a Broncos take that cannot be disputed. I would say, like, John Elway being the best Bronco of all time. I don't really think you
Terrell Davis, best playoff runner ever.
I'm sure someone somewhere has a dispute to that.
They'd be wrong, though.
Right, but that doesn't... does anyone dispute John Elway as the greatest Bronco of all time? Any single person anywhere?
I don't think you could.
I don't think you could either.
Like, even, like, Champ. Just the impact.
He has everything. The longevity. The post-career influence.
Yeah.
Everything. So I don't think it's disputable. Finally, he goes, lastly, it's April Fool's. Let's hear an April Fool's joke that got you pretty good.
Oh, God.
Julian Edelman almost got me today saying he was going to sign with the Bucs. As always, cheers, Tommy Bronco. Let me just say this. Social media April Fool's jokes, one of the worst things that happens every year. Like, I don't fall for them. They're not funny. None of them have ever been funny. Like, it's just like, oh, here's the thing that's not true. It's not true.
Yeah, there was one that got me last year. Some of the guys on the football team were talking about it, but I think it was either Brendan or Keith Miller who tweeted like, "I'm entering the transfer portal," and Brendan. That one got me for a minute. Yeah,
I think that one did get me too. But in the end, it's like, well, now you just made me feel bad for a second. Like, congrats.
No, that's people like that. People like to make.
I like
feel bad.
A good April Fool's prank.
Oh, like, you're more of a pranker than a joker.
If you, like, do a real good prank on April Fool's Day, that's funny. That's good. But, like, just trying to, like, say something that's false on social media, super lame.
I thought of a good one.
I
got real good ones. It was the first time I'd ever been to a Nuggets game, and it was against the Spurs. So I bet we could figure out what exact year this was, but I guess 2005.
Okay.
So I would have been, like, 8.
Okay.
They put up...
Make everyone at home feel nice and old.
Yep. They put up the big thing on the video board, like in the third quarter, saying the Broncos just traded... I think it was...
Oh, my God.
I think it was Jake Plummer and Clinton Portis for Donovan McNabb and Brian Westbrook. I think the point of the joke was that everybody's like, oh, look, we got all these great players. I was bawling.
Oh,
I lost it. I was in tears. They got me so good.
You really wanted Donovan McNabb.
No, because I love Jake Plummer.
Oh, okay.
Even though, like, it doesn't make sense now. Yeah, like, Donovan McNabb. Love Jake Plummer, but it's Donovan McNabb.
Right.
That one really got me.
That is actually a good one.
It was great. Yeah, the Nuggets got me. Yeah.
Social media wasn't really, like, a thing, so, like, this hadn't been done 1,000 times every year. That's good. That's good stuff. I got my mom once with, like, one of the most simple ones ever, which is just, like, put the tape, like, you know, the thing that you use to spray the dishes, like, it's an extra thing on the side of the, so, like, it used to be, so you had your regular faucet, and then there was another one that you pulled out, and, like, it was, like, high pressure.
So when you flip the thing,
well, I just put tape over it. So when she sprayed it just sprayed right back at her.
Nice.
That's, like, harmless. No one was really upset. but it was hilarious for me.
That
and my
was,
sister.
yeah, I bet.
I can't remember one that anyone's really got me on. I'm pretty cynical. Like you'd have to do something really good to get me.
Really?
I think so. And I want you to welcome that challenge.
Okay, yeah, it has been welcomed.
All right, here, let's move on. Last question comes in from Bronco Tiz. See, here we go. Like this doesn't work on anyone. And maybe like I don't know. Maybe this is an actual rumor that they heard, but anyways, here we go. Just saw some disturbing news. Was hoping you can clear it up. Any truth to the news that the group with Kanye West and Antonio Brown is in the lead to buy the Broncos franchise? Saw it with Adam Schefter just minutes ago. April Fools, but feel free to play it on the podcast if this happens. We're right. Like, no one
these are coming.
That.
Yeah.
No one
Could you
that.
imagine if that happened though?
It starts and ends with this. The NFL owners have to approve who the owners are. It would never, ever go through.
That is true.
So,
if it did go through, though, like how far are you from
Bronco Tiz,
liking
I'm just not in the mood.
Kanye? like how? I feel like, yeah, I don't like Kanye. How could you like Kanye at this point? But if he was the Broncos owner, I think I could get there. Could you get there?
I really like Kanye's music.
Yo, me too. Yeah, no, I've listened to it almost every day.
Yeah, but at least especially his older music.
Yeah.
Like I've been on a big college dropout kick lately, and
good
like
stuff.
the vibes are just so good on that record.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just no.
You just can't.
No.
You can't. If he was the Broncos owner, I think I could get there.
I definitely.
I could get a Kanye shirt.
I mean, like,
around.
No.
No?
Just
okay.
can't happen.
Okay. I do like Pete Davidson a lot too. That'd make it tough. He's like maybe my favorite person.
Really?
Yeah. He's right up there. Him, Jokic. Yeah.
Jokic is definitely mine.
Yeah.
What do you think of this? I can't remember if you were here for this yesterday. I was saying I think it would be like a good bit for me if I got a custom jersey of every Denver team that said Jokic on the back.
That would be a good bit. You should get 15 with Jokic on all of them.
I've gotten mixed reviews on that. Actually, everyone's liked it except Allie.
Was it? Oh, okay. I was thinking Adam. I could see Allie not liking it too. Yeah.
I think that's a good bit.
It is a really good bit.
Like you show up to a Broncos game with a 15 Jokic jersey, like people are like, "That's funny."
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Were there any good pranks in the comments? All right, let's get to the super chat and then see. I saw a couple people leaving some pranks in there that we can get to. All right, let's hit the super chat first. From Jelly, thoughts on Cordell Flott and Neil Farrell.
I don't know them. Oh, was Flott the one who got hurt? I don't know.
I thought he was the one that had to play in place of someone else.
That could be. I don't know them well.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
And then one prank you said that was a decent. Higher Learning says, dorms my freshman year, my RA taped a bunch of trash to my friend's door because he kept leaving trash in the hallway. That was a good one. Who leaves trash in a hallway?
What's the content? Like
you
have to do it
have
intentionally.
a bag of chips and just drop it out
like,
there.
Yeah, I guess. Like just open the door and toss it out.
Right. It's true that you don't like unless they just hung out in the hallway a lot, and so they were like eating and they just wouldn't clean up their stuff.
Because you don't produce trash in hallways.
Usually not.
Like the things that people do. Like
so maybe the kid really didn't like the RA. He was like, I'll just throw this trash out here. They'll have to pick it up.
And that's something we should look into because maybe the RA deserved it.
Ooh, yes, that's like my favorite tweet, which is like, we make so much of like deadbeat parents, but no one ever asks if the kid had bad vibes.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
And so the kid probably did deserve that.
Probably.
All right. I think that wraps it up for us. This has been great. Good conversation. We're going to be talking a lot more about these types of prospects. It's the first time in a really long time in the history of this podcast that we haven't had a first-round pick to talk about, except for Russell Wilson, our first-round pick for the next 2 years, which we really like. But we'll have Hank on, Andre. Obviously, it'll all lead up to our draft coverage, which we're going to have, as always, from start to finish of the NFL draft. But we do want to start shifting people. Like most draft podcasts you listen to anywhere are mostly talking about first round picks. So we're going to have to start shifting people's eyes to these guys like you mentioned, and we'll bring up more as the pod goes on. But for now, that's going to wrap it up for us on the DNVR Broncos podcast. Thank you guys so much. Hit us with a thumbs up on your way out. Subscribe. Hit that bell for your alerts. And next week, 3 Ring Circus will be back. Zach and Mace will be back. Can't wait for it. We'll talk to you guys then.